I'm breaking down every great chess player you need to know, who they were, how they played, and what made them different from everyone else. Let's get into it. If you're new here, subscribe. I drop chess improvement content every week and you don't want to miss what's coming. 1. Garry Kasparov. The greatest chess player who ever lived, and he knew it. Kasparov became world champion at 22 and held that title for 15 years. 15 years. Nobody else has done that at that level. What made him different wasn't just calculation, it was his preparation. He turned opening preparation into a weapon unlike anything the chess world had ever seen. He would prepare novelties 20-25 moves deep and just detonate them on opponents who had no idea what was coming. His opponents described playing him as suffocating. Want to know what it felt like to play the most prepared opponent in history? Kasparov spent more hours studying chess than almost any player before him, and it showed every single game. Want to understand dynamic attacking chess at the absolute highest level? His games are the textbook. Want to see what pure competitive fire looks like on a chessboard? Watch any Kasparov game from the 1980s and you'll feel it immediately. Kasparov is the standard. When people argue about the greatest of all time, it always starts and ends with him. His match against Deep Blue in 1997, where he lost to a computer, is one of the most dramatic moments in chess history. If you study one player's games, make it his. 10 out of 10. 2. Magnus Carlsen. Chess has never seen a more complete player, and he makes it look boring on purpose. Magnus Carlsen became world champion in 2013 and held the title for a decade. What's wild about Magnus is that he doesn't have one defining weapon. He doesn't win with devastating attacks or revolutionary openings. He wins by being slightly better than you in every single phase of the game and then grinding you down until you crack. His endgame technique is the best in history. Not top 5, the best. Magnus has this ability to take completely equal dead-drawn positions and somehow find the one tiny imbalance that he can press for 50 moves. His opponents know exactly what he's doing. Number 3, Bobby Fischer.
In baseball.
The greatest pleasure. Well, when you break his ego, this is where it's at.
Yeah? Yeah. Really?
Fischer is the most fascinating chess player in history, not just because of the chess, but because of everything around it. The paranoia, the genius, the self-destruction. He disappeared from chess at the peak of his powers and never came back. What could have been is one of the great what-ifs in sports. 10 out of 10 for the chess. The rest is complicated. By the way, if you're done reading about chess and you're ready to actually get better, I run a program called Chess Blitzkrieg. It's a community and a course. We take players from 700 to 1,500 in under 7 months. Structured, no guessing. Links in the description. Come find us. 4. José Raúl Capablanca. He made the hardest game in the world look effortless, and that's what made him terrifying. Capablanca was world champion from 1921 to 1927 and is widely considered the most naturally talented chess player in history. He learned the game at 4 years old by watching his father play. He beat the Cuban national champion at 13. He went undefeated for 8 years at the top level. 8 years. His style was all about simplicity and technique. He had this almost inhuman ability to see straight to the truth of a position, to cut through complexity and find the cleanest, most efficient path. His endgame play was so clean, it became a model that coaches still use today. Want to know what it felt like to be Capablanca, winning games almost without effort while opponents struggled to find what went wrong? His opponents often couldn't point to one single mistake, they just slowly, quietly lost. Want to understand pure positional chess before it had a name? Capablanca was playing it in the 1910s. Want to see endgame technique so clean it reads like a textbook? Study any of his endgames, and you'll understand why they're still taught 100 years later. Personal take? Capablanca might be the most naturally gifted player in history, even more than Magnus, which is saying something. The tragedy is he didn't take chess seriously enough to stay at the top forever. He lost his title to Alekhine in 1927 and never got a rematch. Still one of the all-time greats. 9 out of 10, 5. Anatoly Karpov, 12 years as world champion.
От тебя трехлетнего, я 40-летний лоб. Играть в шахматы не умею. Поэтому мы тебе нашли достойного противника. Я приглашаю в эту студию 12-го чемпиона мира по шахматам, международного гроссмейстера, заслуженного мастера спорта СССР Анатолия Карпова.
Quiet, precise, and absolutely suffocating to play against. Karpov became champion in 1975 when Fischer refused to defend his title and held it until Kasparov took it from him in 1985. His matches against Kasparov are legendary. 5 matches, hundreds of games, some of the most intense chess ever played. Karpov's style was the opposite of flashy. He was a positional python. He'd slowly accumulate small advantages, a slightly better pawn structure here, a marginally worse piece there, and gradually squeeze until there was no air left. He didn't attack your king, he attacked your position. By the time the game was over, you didn't know what hit you. Want to know what it felt like to play Karpov and realize you'd been outplayed for 30 moves without a single dramatic moment? His opponents described it as watching a machine dismantle them piece by piece. Want to understand prophylactic thinking? Preventing your opponent's plans before they happen? Karpov is the master. Want to see what it looks like when positional understanding reaches an almost supernatural level? His games from the late 1970s are the answer. My take, Karpov is underrated in the conversation about the greatest of all time, probably because his style isn't exciting to casual fans. But serious players know. His level of positional understanding was historic. The Kasparov rivalry alone is worth studying for months. 8.5 out of 10. 6. Mikhail Botvinnik, the architect of Soviet chess, and the man who made chess a science. Botvinnik was world champion 3 separate times between 1948 and 1963. But his legacy isn't just titles, it's methodology. Botvinnik was the first player to treat chess preparation as a serious, systematic discipline. He studied his opponent's games obsessively. He prepared specific variations for specific players. He trained physically. He treated chess like a professional sport decades before anyone else did. He also ran a famous chess school that produced Karpov, Kasparov, and a dozen other elite players. The entire Soviet chess dominance of the 20th century traces back in some way to Botvinnik. Want to know what it felt like to be Botvinnik, approaching chess with the discipline of a scientist and the preparation of a soldier? He would spend months preparing for a single match. Want to understand where modern opening preparation actually comes from? Botvinnik pioneered it. Want to see what it looks like when chess is treated as something you can study and master systematically rather than just intuitively? His career is the proof of concept. Botvinnik isn't the most exciting player on this list, but he might be the most important. Without him, Soviet chess doesn't dominate the way it did. Without his school, maybe Kasparov never reaches his potential. He built the foundation that everyone else stood on. 8 out of 10, 7, Mikhail Tal, the magician from Riga, the most exciting chess player who ever lived, full stop. Tal became world champion in 1960 at age 23 by beating Botvinnik in one of the most shocking upsets in chess history. His style was pure chaos. He would sacrifice pieces, sometimes unsoundly, by his own admission, just to create complications so complex that no human could navigate them at the board. His opponents knew the sacrifices were questionable. They still couldn't refute them. They'd lose anyway. Tal played chess like he was trying to set the board on fire. Every game was an adventure. Every position was a potential explosion. He had this almost hypnotic effect over opponents. They'd describe getting lost in his eyes during games, feeling confused, making mistakes they couldn't explain. Want to know what it felt like to play Tal and have him sacrifice a piece on move 12 with a grin on his face, knowing you had to find the only correct defense or lose everything. That was every game against him. Want to understand attacking chess taken to its absolute extreme? Study Tal. Want to see a player who genuinely didn't care if the sacrifice was correct as long as it created chaos? That's the magician. My take. Tal is my favorite player on this list. Not the best, but the most fun to study, the most human, the most alive at the board. He burned bright and burned fast. Health problems plagued him his whole career. He never held the title for long, but those games are something else. 10 out of 10 for entertainment value. A genuine legend. 8. Alexander Alekhine, four-time world champion, chess genius, and one of the most complex figures the game has ever produced. Alekhine became world champion in 1927 by beating Capablanca, the man widely considered unbeatable, and held the title for most of the rest of his life. His chess was a combination of deep calculation, sharp tactics, and long-term strategic planning that nobody had seen before. He could hold an entire game's worth of complexity in his head and navigate it move by move. He was also obsessive in a way that bordered on fanatical. He studied constantly. He analyzed his games relentlessly. He approached every opponent as a problem to be solved and then solved them. Want to know what it felt like to be Alekhine, beating the man everyone thought was unbeatable and announcing yourself as the new king of chess? That 1927 match against Capablanca is one of the greatest upsets in the game's history. Want to understand combinational chess, sharp, tactical, complicated play at the highest level? Alekhine's games are the classroom. Want to see what it looks like when preparation meets genius meets obsession? His career answers that question completely. My take: Alekhine's legacy is complicated by things that happened off the board, but the chess is undeniable. His attacking games are some of the most brilliant ever played, and his ability to beat Capablanca twice puts him in the conversation with anyone. 8 out of 10. 8 players, all different, all unforgettable. If I had to pick one to study first, start with Kasparov for preparation and aggression, Tal if you want to fall in love with attacking chess, and Capablanca if you want to understand technique. Each one of them will make you see the board differently. Here's the thing about studying these players. It only works if you know what to take from them, how to apply it, and you've got people around you keeping you accountable. That's exactly what Chess Blitzkrieg is, an online community and course that takes you from 700 to 1,500 in less than 7 months. Not someday. 7 months. If you're serious, the link is in the description. First step is yours.